So the next job that I wanted to do was to wire the entire boat. There's some of the old wiring there that needs to be removed, but I realized that I'm going to need to put in my electrical panels really before I should do that, because I'll have nothing to attach the wiring to, and I'll also be able to cut the proper length. So I've made a cardboard, I don't know if you can see that, a cardboard template here for the nav station. It's going to stick out about 3.5 inches. I wanted to embed the electronics that I have. So that's the LCD screen for the radar, my articulating mount for my iPad, the electric panels, of course, and the VHF, and another screen for these screens that actually show everything on one. I've put together this paper mock-up of how I want the nav station to look with its various pieces and how I'm going to configure them. I have the two electrical panels side by side here. The round battery switch, which will obviously allow you to switch between two different batteries or two different battery banks. The LCD screen for the chart plotter, actually for the radar, does have a chart plotter function, which I likely won't use, since you really just need to insert cards for different areas to get the maps, but rather I'll be using the iPad and just download maps for different areas. This will also be on a articulating or a swinging arm, and will swing out into the cockpit, so it could be seen from that area. It'll move in different directions and also tilt. This will be the VHF, which I will probably leave a little space here to mount the handset there. And then the tri-data screen, which shows the numbers that are displayed in the cockpit, depth, speed, various wind numbers. If I get an autopilot, that'll also be displayed on there, heading, things like that. And finally, a little outlet here, basically a cigarette lighter, to be used as an auxiliary power source. And this is the rough frame that I knocked together. I'm pretty sure this is the way it's going to go. Of course, I have to sand down this teak and round the corners and such, but this is, I think, the way it's going to go. Here's the frame, sanded down, corners epoxied and screwed. This is the nav center, now temporarily mounted with the teak plywood face, all of the cutouts. The dry fitted instruments. Of course, nothing's varnished yet. So we have electrical panel, battery switch, LCD screen for the radar. This is my iPad. There's actually nothing in there. It's a waterproof case on a ram mount on a swivel bracket. VHF and the tri-data for the instruments. The swing arm here allows me to position it outside so I can see it from the pedestal. I do have the option of removing the iPad slash chart plotter and putting it on the pedestal guard where the steering wheel is. There's no guard on there now, but that's another option. I think this is probably the more simpler solution. That way I don't have to take it off every time. So this is temporarily mounted, and I've temporarily mounted this brass latch Couple of notes here. I did have to end up shimming the whole thing with this piece here, but did leave a space here for air up there and down here. The back of the radar screen does get hot, so I'm going to be mounting a computer fan in there, and those slots will serve as airflow. Also, the back of the VHF probably needs to be cool too. So I think at this point I'm about ready to start wiring. I'm going to take this apart, varnish it with the, you know, the 100 coats or whatever I usually do.
2 days later.
And finally, the finished nav station. All varnished and configured. I've actually already started with some of the wiring here. Also have installed my new berth lights, which really look nice. Here's the forward ones. Both look very nice. Okay, at this stage I'll be wiring up a marine stereo. And basically I just wanted something to fill the hole here that was already cut on the port side bulkhead. And as I thought, not very difficult to wire up. I fashioned these little brackets for the speakers. These are waterproof speakers. Although I'm putting them inside, I'll be putting them in there. And the finished product. Sounds great. A week or two later, I've gotten pretty much 95% of the wiring finished. So this terminal block is all of the wiring that goes up the mast. Everything's been labeled, and also the label's protected with a clear heat shrink. I've got a new VHF cable here on the boat and going up the mast as well. This is the junction box for the radar, dome. This is a terminal block for the wind speed wand. And looking here at the wall, the wiring will come down through the roof and just run along the mast beam here. I'm going to probably organize this a little better with some wire loom, which I don't want to put in until I build a little storage area that I'm going to do here for behind the head. But otherwise, I think that looks good here. Moving aft to the new nav station. I was able to put all the wiring in. Those are all the battery cables going to the batteries, the engines, the battery switch here. This is all of the cables from up front that moves that back here. I'm going to tuck it into that hole, or into that slot up there. Lastly, I just have a few more wires to put in back here. I'm not too happy with the organization, but maybe make it a little neater. This is my new VHF. This is the old GPS wiring, which I'm going to keep for now. Otherwise, everything, all the other wiring here is brand new. I did go up to 14 gauge, or rather down to a heavier gauge from the 16 that was here. Also, all of this battery cable, I went to with 2 gauge rather than what was here, which was 4 gauge, which is heavier. You know, I don't think the runs are much longer than they were, but I'm wondering if I should have stayed with 4, because that would have been a little bit more flexible. You know, as far as opening and closing this, sometimes it's a little stiff, but I think it'll work out okay. Other than that, the stereo is complete. Speakers are installed. Probably going to put some teak plywood on there, kind of as a backing. I'm not real pleased with the fit there, as you can see the seam. And I do have some teak scraps left over from the 4x8 sheet teak plywood that I bought to make the main bulkheads and the nav station. And I think that's it for the wiring. And right now, this is where the batteries will live. So the trays, which are here, I did coat the bottom of them with spray vinyl, kind of like that plastic dip stuff you use for handles on tools, because they were a little corrosion, even though they're aluminum. They're originally just screwed into the top of the keel here, into the glass. I went to screw them back down. The screws didn't hold, and no matter how many holes I tried, I'd either break the screw or strip the hole. So my strategy here is to epoxy in these furring strips. Really all they are is marine plywood, 1.5 inches wide. I'm going to epoxy those down and then coat them in epoxy liberally, and then screw those battery trays right into those, and see how that works. And there we have it. Epoxied in those strips, and battery trays are holding really well. I did have to move the batteries up a bit from their original position, only because I ordered one of the battery cables I ordered was a little short. But I'm thinking that I might have room in here, yes I do, for a third battery. Not only to increase the amp hours, but I was planning to use a small electric trolling motor with my inflatable dinghy, and if I could keep it in series here, it would always be charged by the solar panels or the wind generator or whatever route I go. However, I might upgrade these to AGM batteries. They're obviously flooded acid lead batteries. But if not, I'm going to have to get battery cases for these in case of, a knockdown. They would spill acid. And I think that's it for this part of the project, and moving on to the next one.